Let's give you some practical advice for your Dynasty team in the form of which players should you be trading for 25 first or down tiering for 25 first for? Let's start with somebody like Kenneth Walker. I was asking Nathan because we're like, do we split this up into early 25 first and mid and late? But then we're like, but we always assume it's a random 25 first. Don't ever assume it's early.
That's the point right there. Let's just say that right now. Asterisk to this entire video. When you are making trades for future firsts that aren't this year, where you don't know the final record of the team you're negotiating with, what do?
Assume it's late first.
You always assume it's a late first.
We can just end it right there. Make sure you drop a like on the video. No, I'm just kidding. But Kenneth Walker's a good example of this. I was asking Nathan, I was like, Nathan, random 25 first or Kenneth Walker? And Nathan's like,
Kenneth Walker. 25 first.
Idiot.
Oops.
He did. He said 25 first. And I'm like, you're right. And so when you're thinking about like Kenneth Walker, we get slack for this every time. We're like, oh, guys, Kenneth Walker's been solid. You're selling an RB1. You're selling a clear workhorse. I don't understand why you're selling Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker hasn't really done squat that is fantasy relevant. I mean, he's been a mid to low end running back too each year he's been in the league so far. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's got Zach Charbonnet that's taking away some of the passing game downs for him. And you could say, okay, he's going to get more of the work this year. He's going to get less of the work. You're talking about a 25 first. Usually, like if you were to trade Kenneth Walker last year for a random first, you are 85-90% you're getting a better asset there this year because the 110 is going higher than Kenneth Walker in startup drafts.
Well, when you think about it too, like the running back class next year, I'm not one to buy into a bunch of crazy hype, but if I'm just going off of what the market and what the Dynasty community is thinking and believing right now, I'm not necessarily counting on the running back class in 2025 being insane and generational. I'm counting on the Dynasty community treating it like that, which will inevitably spike the value of those 25 firsts like nobody's business because of the demand at the running back position right now.
And it's not just like, hey, trade him for a random first. It's like down tier. So for Kenneth Walker, like somebody who is way cheaper than Kenneth Walker, but has low end running back 2 upside. Somebody like Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is dirt cheap right now. I'm talking dirt cheap. So is Nick Chubb. But if you get one of those guys, Nick Chubb's obviously riskier there, but Aaron Jones they're almost the same price. If you down tier to Aaron Jones plus a 25 first, you get pretty much the same production upside and probably the same likely range of outcomes for their production, and you get a 25 first on top. It's a beautiful move that like that's a move, and I'm like, that's chef's kiss right there. I love it because you're getting you're moving essentially to a productive. What am I trying to say?
A productive, proven veteran, a lateral move from a production perspective, and you're getting value upside on top. The value upside of 25 first is objectively higher than Kenneth Walker. I don't think anybody would deny that because of the situation with Zach Charbonnet in Seattle. The fact that Kenneth Walker going into 2025 will be going into his 4th year in the NFL, and that's a dreaded 4th year for running backs, where he's probably not going to get a crazy contract from Seattle just with the market of running backs right now, unless he goes nuts in 2024.
I mean, we would have to essentially bet that Kenneth Walker would gain value over the next year.
Right. And in this market, I'm never going to bet
And
on
without the heavy receiving upside from Kenneth Walker, you typically don't see backs without that go into the top 4 rounds unless they're really, really good on the ground. Kenneth Walker's good on the ground. He's a good running back. But acting like Kenneth Walker was some kind of generational prospect that we're just sleeping on and we're missing, and that if we sell him, look, I mean, again, I think there's a 75 or higher % chance that any random 25 first will be more valuable than Kenneth Walker in a year, and you're getting production on top of it with somebody like Aaron Jones, James Conner, Nick Chubb, things like that.
Yeah, so. Zach Moss. Yeah, couldn't agree more. One of the biggest philosophy shifts that I've had in the way that I play Dynasty over the last couple of years is how I view running backs going into or approaching their 4th year on their rookie deal versus veteran running backs who have been productive for multiple years, have not shown a fall off yet, and are probably on 1 or 2 years left on their 2nd deal. And to me, I view those in terms of production relatively the same, which means basically, why would I not make this down tier move? And I'm applying this concept to Isaiah Pacheco specifically. Like, Isaiah Pacheco is going into his 3rd year this year, right? It's not his 4th, but what do we know about the Kansas City Chiefs and their situation? Does anyone in the audience currently watching this video, do any of you guys believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to heavily invest in Isaiah Pacheco regardless of what he does in 2024?
Isaiah Pacheco is going to be 26 next year.
I don't even care about his age. I care about the situation in Kansas City and who they pay and who they've shown that they prioritize and want to invest in, and that's the defensive line, and that is Patrick Mahomes. They didn't even pay Tyreek Hill.
No.
They didn't pay Tyreek Hill.
And the other thing is they technically haven't paid Mahomes. Mahomes needs to get a new contract because he's not even.
They just repurposed his contract. They redid it at the end of last year, I think.
He's still out of the top 6 or 7 highest paid QBs in the NFL. So he's probably going to get another one. He's probably going to get more money.
Unless he intentionally took a pay cut like Kelsey. Not a pay
Maybe.
cut, but like Kelsey could be
like
paid a
Joe
lot more
Burrow
than
was going to do. And then he just took the biggest contract he could to get all of his friends to stay, and now T. Higgins is pissed.
I think they reworked the contract. I think Mahomes allowed that because they wanted to pay
that
Chris
may be
Jones,
true. I mean, it's not like he's not getting $1 trillion bazillion in endorsements.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, that's a rabbit trail. But with Isaiah Pacheco, kind of the same thing with Walker here. Let's get a veteran plus a 25 first. Isaiah Pacheco has a significant amount of value right now. He's as highly valued as Rachaad White is, and he hasn't even ever been a running back 1. Rachaad White's been the running back 4 overall. Pacheco hasn't gotten any better than the running back 15.
yeah.
And I'm not super anti-Isaiah Pacheco. I understand his value, and I like him as running back. I like watching him play. He runs weird. He destroys the ground. The poor grass under his feet. I don't know if it'll ever grow back ever again.
It won't.
I also know that Isaiah Pacheco isn't going to get paid by the Kansas City Chiefs, and a lot of the reason for his production, if we're being honest, is because of the way that they've run their offense the last couple of years. And if I can pivot and get a guy who has a skill set like his or better, and I can get a future pick, if I can get Alvin Kamara plus a second, not even a first, if I can get Alvin Kamara plus a 25 second, I'm doing it.
Well, what if you got Najee Harris in a first? Najee Harris was a low-end running back too last year.
Yeah.
I like that deal plenty. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco burns 1,000 calories every time he moves one of his arms in his running form. You should sell him because of that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that he's injury prone, but the durability has been a bit of a concern. He does start to taper off a little bit towards the end of the season. He has the last couple of years, and it's the first 2 years of his career.
Now, granted, you could make the argument that the Chiefs are moving more towards running the ball, and that's absolutely true. That being said, the Chiefs were still a top 10 passing offense in the league last year. And Isaiah Pacheco, again, it's less about the situation, because the situation is good. It's more about the fact that Isaiah Pacheco really came off his best year ever, really came off of a year where he's being valued exponentially higher than he was the year before, and he finishes a mid-running back too. You have to wonder what his ceiling is past this. And so, again, it leads us to believe that his value is going to go down. When you're talking about a veteran and a 25 first, the biggest asset in that deal is the first, and it's going to go up in value. It's the exact same reason why when we have players we don't know what to do with, we're like, yeah, I'll take a 25 first. I know the 25 first is going to increase in value. So when you're talking about Deshaun is a player that we get on here and we're like, with Deshaun, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
freaking know. I do know with the first.
Pros, he's on a ginormous contract. Cons, he's an alleged sex offender, and he sucks at football at the current moment.
You can't say the first thing you said because that's you have to.
Nothing wrong with the sex offender stuff, though.
No.
Okay.
No, just because it's completely irrelevant to the points that he's scoring. So you can't even say it.
Right. No. But and again, a lot of people.
Some people don't pick up on the sarcasm, so I'm trying to help here.
a lot of people that have watched some of our comments on Deshaun Watson and Dynasty in particular have been like, yeah, he actually finished the year okay. I mean, I think it's obvious. I think it's obvious that Deshaun Watson's not going to be the player that he was in Houston during that stretch for a lot of reasons. And I think that with that and with his value is kind of teetering right now. It's like, is it gonna go back up and he's gonna be like a Jared Goff where he kind of revitalizes his career and goes back up into gets another contract? That's possible. Honestly, it is possible.
Yeah.
The odds that he does that, I think, I don't know. And there's also...
I don't even want to go into the odds. Here's the odds that I really, really like. A 25 first increasing in value.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that for me. And look, this isn't a video of just you exclusively sell these players. Sell. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, given a situation where you are offered the opportunity to acquire a future first, specifically a 25 first. We just saw this with 24 first. Look how much they increase in value. Odds are the same thing's going to happen in 2025 and 2026 and 2027 because someone in your league, at least someone in your league, is going to be obsessed with the prospects in this class. It doesn't even matter what the level of talent is. Maybe we'll never see a class again like 2024. Maybe not. There was a lot of talent in 2024. Maybe we'll never see a class as deep as that one.
Maybe 2024 sucks.
It doesn't matter. These 25 firsts are going to increase in value, and that's just a fact. And this is where I want to pause and make this very, very clear because we make this a huge, huge point on our channel all the time. What's the goal of Dynasty Fantasy Football? It's to win your leagues, just like Redraft, to score points. When you're acquiring future firsts, right? We're not telling you to get rid of super hyper productive assets like Tyreek Hill to get 25 first and second.
That's
right?
stupid.
And some people will do that. We have seen that before. We're like, we know for a fact this is a projected top 4 first that I'm getting, and I'm going to give up Tyreek Hill, and I'm going to get that first and maybe a second on top. I'm like, okay, I mean, if you want to bet on that, sure, maybe it'll pay off. What we're doing here is we are making lateral production moves to get value upside with the picks on top. That's really the idea here. And we're offloading players that, sure, they could increase in value. Just like we said, Deshaun Watson could increase in value. Pacheco, maybe he could increase in value. Kenneth Walker probably has a better chance at increasing in value. Devontae Adams, still on a big deal. Mike Evans, he's not going to stop, apparently. Cooper Kupp, maybe he could revitalize his career as well. But these are some of the veterans that we're talking about where we know that they're probably just not going to increase in value.
And because of that, like, do we... I mean,
this is how you get ahead of the rebuild to
with
avoid
Adams,
the rebuild.
Evans, and Kupp. Like, these are guys you know they're not going to increase in value. And how do we know that? Because look at the year Mike Evans had, and look at what his value did over year.
Yes.
I mean, the dude was a top 6 wide receiver or something, right? Like, he was absurd. The best X in the league. Scoring fantasy points off the wazoo. Scoring touchdowns like crazy. Putting up 30-plus point games.
Yeah. Then,
and his value maintained or decreased in most leagues.
I mean, he was going as low as a 9th round like 18 months ago, and now he's back up to the 7th-ish. And it's because he was so productive with Baker Mayfield. Like, his value has impressively fluctuated and even gone up as he's gotten older. But that's kind of the point here. Like, Adams, Evans, and Kupp, we can talk about them in a cluster, but they're the guys that are increasing in value right now at this point in the offseason. And it's funny because this is something that we recommended to our people on flockfantasy.com/domain who signed up for Team Blueprints. We said, especially for your rebuilds early in the offseason, don't sell your veterans now. Don't sell Devontae Adams now, even though you need to rebuild. Don't sell Mike Evans, even though you need to rebuild in January, February, March. Do it in June and July, because in June and July, what do people start looking at? The schedule just came out. The NFL draft just happened. You start seeing what these teams and these rosters are going to look like, and you start remembering that points win you championships. So what do the teams that think they're contending in June do? They go and they try to buy the points in June.
Because they think
they go to try and buy the
June.
points in July because they think they're playing games in June and July. So that's when you take advantage. Now is the time to take advantage, guys. Now is the time. We're not trying to say that Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, and Cooper Kupp aren't going to produce. There's a good chance that they will. But you're probably going to get more out of them than you'll be able to in the future, because there is risk holding them in the middle of the season. And because a guy like Cooper Kupp, maybe he doesn't pan out.
If Cooper Kupp is the wide receiver 6 through 8 games, you'll get more selling Cooper Kupp midseason than you will now. That's just a fact.
Yes.
If Cooper Kupp gets hurt week 1, you lost value. You lost.
Yep.
Whatever value you had in Cooper Kupp is gone.
Yeah.
So the advantage, like a lot of people would say, well, don't sell your vets now, sell your vets in the season. On a rebuild, there's risk in doing that because you're risking that veteran, A, hitting their cliff, or B, getting injured. And the one advantage of selling them maybe at a 10% cheaper rate in the offseason, it's not that big of a difference in June and July because people get so excited. The one advantage there is that you can sell them without knowing what's going to happen in the season, without knowing, and the person who's buying has no clue. I mean, a lot of the most regretful trades I've ever made have been buying these veterans in the summer with my future picks, only for the veterans to either suck or get hurt.
Yeah.
And then I gave up my pick for what?
Yep. And some of this is going to be dependent on their value. Adams, Evans, and Kupp, we talk about them in a cluster because they're all valued pretty much the same, and they have significant value. They're close to a late first and early second, multiple seconds in the future. But a guy like Calvin Ridley is someone that I'm comfortable, because he's so cheap as a rebuild, holding him going into the beginning of the season, because when he inevitably starts scoring points, you're going to get more for him then than you are right now. You look at their current price and you say, how much more can I get out of them in the future compared to now? Realistically, for a guy like Calvin Ridley, you can get a significant amount more if it pays off. If it doesn't, what are you out? Way less than if you'd held on to a guy like Cooper Kupp and he didn't pan out, right?
Yeah.
But that's why we like to apply this to running backs especially. All these veteran running backs that are dirt cheap right now, Like, those are the guys that you want to hold on to until the middle of the season.
And let's go through some of those guys. Like, here are some down tier candidates for you when you're down tiering from certain like you can pick which players you like or don't like. Look, the guys.
These are for contenders and rebuilds alike. If you're a rebuild and you're taking one of these contending running backs, this is good for you because you can capitalize on their price in the middle of the season.
And again, the guys up front are just guys that we're pivoting off of. We're not necessarily telling you have to pivot off of them, but pick the guys that you don't believe in, you want to pivot off of, or you think is going to be a lateral production move. I thought of the word lateral there. Derrick Henry is a great one. Derrick Henry, like the betting lines for Derrick Henry's production this year, like would put him to be a top 12 running back in fantasy football.
Wide receiver.
That would be nuts.
Yeah.
He's
got some receiving upside.
Right, yeah. All those receiving touchdowns from Derrick Henry over the years. But with Derrick Henry, like he is projected to be extremely productive this year. And you can down tier from guys like even guys we mentioned earlier, Walker and Pacheco, to Derrick Henry and get so much on top.
And look, he's the most expensive running back in this group, and he's the oldest. I mean, go down this line and look at Alvin Kamara, younger, and he has sustainable receiving upside. He doesn't require a ridiculous amount of carries, a ridiculous amount of efficiency on the ground to be a productive running back, and he's cheaper than Derrick Henry. Same thing with Calvin Ridley, a wide receiver. We already mentioned him. David Montgomery, he's still on a contract. Yes, he's a running back 2 in Detroit, but he vultures touchdowns, and I don't think that's going to stop because Ben Johnson's still there. Montgomery got 10 touchdowns last year with Jahmyr Gibbs as a rookie going off. Like, this is a guy who you know what you're going to get from Montgomery. Does he offer a massive, huge ceiling for you? Not really.
Does he offer 10 points per game in your flex spot? 12 points per game in your flex spot?
12.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yep. With 20-point upside on the weeks he gets 2 or 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. I mean, even moving to some of the wide receivers here, Chris Godwin's a great one. Chris Godwin was announced he's going to move back full-time to the slot. When you're looking at Chris Godwin, what he's been able to do from a fantasy perspective when he's been like the full-time slot wide receiver in his career, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's where he thrives. Why? Because he's so good at reading defenses. He's so good at getting in the middle defenses and getting some of those easy passes that Baker Mayfield has shown time and time again that he absolutely cannot throw. Yeah. But it doesn't matter because Chris Godwin, he's a guy that when he is in the right position, he can be quarterback proof. And Baker's also, to Baker's credit, he's also been better.
And his target share last year was what, like 22%?
21 something percent.
Which for any normal like occurrence, you generally see that target share turn into like low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 numbers, and it just didn't for him last year, which was crazy.
Well, it was big. It was in part because Mike Evans was vulturing the touchdowns, but it was another part because Chris Godwin was getting so many targets, like being lined up in different places besides the slot, that they weren't really turning. I mean, he's not really a good like possession wide receiver. And so like a lot of his touchdowns, when you're looking at his touchdowns year over year, like would come out of the slot and getting some yak. Like that's where you saw it. Like, I mean, that's so Chris Godwin's another good one.
Another wide receiver that I'm going to throw in here too is Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper value equivalent to Derrick Henry. It is redonkulous how Amari Cooper has just fallen and fallen and fallen. And I don't know if it's because of the Jerry Jeudy signing or the fact that people just don't like Amari Cooper and feel like he's a million years old, even though he's only 29. Like this guy is a guy who's capable of putting up 40 points with 5 catches because his yak ability is that good. That good. He single-handedly advanced people into the playoffs and took them to the championship last year.
He's good.
Literally, he was the single reason. I cannot tell you how many teams I saw that had Amari Cooper, and the only reason they won is because he went off. They were down 30 points going into that game, and then they win because of Amari Cooper. And yeah, sure, they lost because of him too in the championship because he didn't do anything because he was hurt that week.
True.
He ended up being injured. But this is the kind of guy that has that upside to help you potentially win your leagues and be productive. This is the guy who did that with Joe Flacco as his quarterback. With who else was on that team? Was PJ Walker on the team? DTR? Deshaun, like, oh my gosh. He is the wide receiver 1 there. He is. Elijah Moore ain't touching him. Jerry Jeudy, as unproven as it gets. Really.
It really is. And so we've reached the portion of the offseason now where it's like what I like to call it down tier season, because you can sell these veterans where, again, you don't know what's going to happen to them in the season, but you don't have to worry about it because you can sell them.
Yeah. And you can get cheaper veterans plus picks.
Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it beautiful? And it's only a matter of time that we see when you're looking at the value of rookie picks over the span of a year in Dynasty Fantasy Football. The next big value bump for 2025 firsts is right at the beginning of the season. The first week of September, as soon as we start the season, people are like, that's this year. 25's this year. That's after this season. And you see him go like this. Every year you see it. And so right now what we're doing by essentially investing in 25 first, whether that's as a contender, as a rebuild, as a reload, we are essentially buying them before their price goes up 25% more. And I think this is a really good time to do it. It's a perfect equilibrium in the market where veterans have enough value now to sell, and 25 first are cheap enough to where you can trade for them and also not break the bank. Make these moves, and I promise you, in a year, you're going to be like, that was smart. That was smart.
Smart.
People say that was smart. Smart. Cool. All right. Make sure you drop a like on the video. And if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, I know this is hard to believe. Nathan and I play with Dynasty Fantasy Football too. We do.
Yep.
Even together sometimes.
We do.
Even sometimes in our sleep we play.
Yeah.
I've played in my sleep multiple times.
I just made a juicy trade recently too.
In
like
your
a
sleep?
week ago. No, not my sleep. Like in real life.
Like awake.
Yeah.
So subscribe if you play Dynasty because we obviously do too. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.